This episode of Jump Off Point is brought to you by, well, you. If you want to learn how to support the Boss Rush family of podcasts, head to bossrush.net or our Patreon at patreon.com/bossrushmedia. Thanks for helping us build something better.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Jump Off Point podcast. I'm your host, the one, the only Eddie V. Joining me is the wise Wisconsin himself, Mr. Jesse Douglas. Hello, good sir.
Hey, how's it going, everyone?
And everybody, we have the wise Wrestle Knight, Mr. Josh Martinez.
I want to know what a Wrestle Knight does on a chessboard.
I really don't know. I think he just, throws his opponents off the chessboard or a few paces back so the king can push for it. But how are you guys doing?
Good.
It's just us three tonight. We don't have a guest. Right? As everybody should know, I think Josh Martinez is our third co-host. If he's up to being our third co-host, thank you.
Love it.
Yeah.
So, we're going to get into what's been jumping in everybody's playing or what they've been watching. I'm going to start with you, Josh. What one game has been jumping in your gaming, or have you been watching the TV show that you?
Yeah, so I mean, I've been still sticking with a lot of the stuff that I mentioned previously. I did start up just because it's leaving PS Plus here in a month. I did start up Marvel Spider-Man a couple days ago, and oh my goodness, that's so much fun. I like breezed through the first 5 missions on Monday night, and I've been having so much fun. It reminds me of the game, the Spider-Man game back that came out in 2002 that like came out alongside the movie, the one with Tobey Maguire, but this one's just kind of a lot more advanced. It's a lot more cinematic than that one. I don't know. It's a lot of fun, and I've been wanting to get through as much as I can before it leaves PS Plus. On May, I think it's May 16th it leaves. So.
Okay, that's cool. Well, Jesse, what has been jumping in your gaming or TV watching? What one game or TV show?
Honestly, I have. Let's see. I know I watched some stuff, some TV show stuff. I'm trying to think though of what it was that I was watching. I've kind of been. Oh, there's some like the show Love Is Blind. I watched some of that. There's I don't know. Yeah, I haven't.
That's the new season.
No, I've been watching some of the older stuff because I started kind of late. I've only watched part or most of the first season. I started it a while back and then just never finished it. The first season, but I went back and watched some more of it and finished the first season. But yeah, I had honestly, other than like playing Fortnite and stuff with my kids or whatever, I haven't really done a whole lot of gaming lately. So I've just kind of been busy with life, honestly, lately. So, but
Well, for me, I've been playing Haku the Robot. This is a Metroidvania style game, more on the Castlevania side than actually no. It really is a Metroidvania because even though it's a big map and you still gotta get items to progress. You do a melee attack with your sword, and the weird thing about it is the Haku, he attacks from down to up, so he slash horizontal and everything. And normally you would think characters would slash down or vertical, but he goes from down to up, and he makes like this big circle. for it. It really doesn't tell you where to go. You literally just fall into different places and fight fight bosses. Now, that's the one thing I kind of like don't like about this game is that there's no indicator seeing where like how you hurting if you're hurting the boss or anything. Like I think I love games with energy bars. Um, because it lets me know where I'm at when I'm fighting an enemy and stuff. No, I don't like games where I gotta do 75,000 hits and then it's like, oh, okay, you did the 75,000 hits. Now this is their second form. Like he just showed me an energy bar so I could see how much damage I'm doing. Uh and take take it down that way. So that's kind of what I am playing at the moment. Not really watching anything just yet. I gotta get on back on my Hulu and see what new stuff is on there, and then sit down and watch it. So, but everybody, that's what's been jumping with what we're playing and stuff. We're gonna get to point it out. And before we go, Josh, Jesse, you said you had something that you wanted to.
Oh yeah, no, I just really quick. I had just thought of it after I had said that I didn't have anything to talk about. But like I said, I've just been I had a crazy day today. I'll be honest at work, but so I did end up going and seeing Suzume in the theaters. That Crunchyroll. I think it's Crunchyroll did the dubbing. Is that how it works or something like that? But yeah, I did go see that movie, and that movie was phenomenal. It was such a good movie. It was so good.
I seen it in they're playing it in Kenosha's Tinseltown. They're playing the original and the dub at different times.
Yep, they're doing that by us too. They're playing the original and the dubbed, and yeah, like I really liked that movie a lot.
They're doing the Spirits of the Way live, the live action play.
Really?
It. Yeah. So the 27th, which is a Thursday. By the time you guys see this, they already showed it. They're doing it that night, and then they're doing it May 2nd, which is a Tuesday night. And the thing about
I didn't even know they had one.
Yeah, look at this. The Studio Ghibli Fan Fest is on. So if you look it up, there may be you got like a Cinemark or somewhere close to you. I say go look it up. It started at 7:00 on Thursday on April 27th. So I would say go look it up, put in your location, and it'll show you all the theaters that's showing it that's close to you.
Because no, Suzume wasn't a Ghibli movie at all.
No.
No, okay. Yeah. No, I was gonna say I don't think that was a Ghibli movie, but
no. Because because the Spirits of the Way live action, it's the first time that they're showing it in America, and I don't know if they're ever going to sell it on DVD.
Yeah. Yeah, that dude. I didn't even know that existed. Like. Mm-hmm. I've always wondered if they would ever make, because they've got a couple of movies that would be really cool, and like like I could see them doing a My Neighbor Totoro movie too, like with CGI, like kind of, like could you imagine like Marvel level, like budget, like CSI or CGI Totoro movie would be cool. But
that was the first one that they did last month. So that kicked off the Studio Ghibli Fan Fest, and I went to go see the Japanese version in the
theater.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Josh, have you seen a Studio Ghibli film?
I did when I was young. I'm looking up to see if they've got them going on near me too.
Yeah, this is Totoro, My Neighbor Totoro, like on my shirt, and which is my favorite, just because I love like his character, like just. But,
Yeah, so it's been like a while, and I just got HBO Max a couple of months ago, and they're
okay.
all on there.
Yep.
And so I've been meaning to sit down and revisit because we're talking I was had to been 8 or 9, so I don't remember them,
Yeah.
and I just have gone. I've been wanting to get back because I've heard really good thing. I think it went over my head as an 8-year-old because I know
Yeah.
they're cartoons, but they're at the same time they're a little bit
Animated.
different than what like cartoons I was expecting at 8 and 9. So I've wanted to go back to see them. I mean, I've gotten in a little bit into anime recently. Like I've been
Mhm.
watching My Hero Academia, which I know is not Ghibli, but it's the closest I've been to anime since Yu-Gi-Oh and Pokemon when I was a kid. So
Yeah, and
but
so essentially, like the thing is like Ghibli is basically like the Studio Ghibli is basically the Japanese version of Disney. Like essentially, it's like their Disney. Like their all their movies and stuff they make are are like top of the line. Like just and like and a lot of their movies are actually their rendition of Disney movies. Like Ponyo is their version of Little Mermaid. The Secret World of Arrietty is their version of The Borrowers.
It's a lot of their works are based off of books.
Yeah, yeah,
okay.
So
yeah,
there are some original stuff, but a lot of that's like
yeah.
based off of books.
But even Spirited Away, I think, is almost like there reminds me a lot of Alice in Wonderland.
Mm-hmm.
It's like almost like their version of that. And then like Totoro is I feel like that's pretty original. Like I can't really think of what that would be like
Is
other than like Winnie the Pooh. Or, I don't know. I don't know what you would like. What you would really.
Totoro's like more original work.
Yeah. So.
is Kiki's Delivery Service, is that Ghibli?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Really good.
That one
too.
That one I remember. That's the one I do remember pretty clearly as a kid. Again, I couldn't tell you the plot of it, but I mean that imagery I remember in very clearly. There's some stuff from Spirited Away I think
Castle
I
in the
remember.
Sky.
Mhm.
Castle in the Sky is another one. Howl's Moving Castle is another one.
Yeah, Kiki's Delivery Service is a weird one because it doesn't have a plot per se. You just go on a venture of this teenage girl or this girl who's a witch delivering packages.
Yeah, it's childhood. It's like it's the womanhood. It's becoming a woman, becoming a witch. Like like a woman or a girl turning into a woman kind of like process of, like learning about being a witch and it's like kind of that kind of like womanhood, I guess, is the best way to say it.
So I would say if you want to watch one of their darkest movies, of course, it's Grave of the Fireflies.
Okay.
That one is very it's dark and emotional because you're seeing how so I don't want to give anything away. I would literally want you to, I'm just seeing it for the first time. I want you literally to go in and just like watch it. I don't like it. I think I'm not saying it's the worst of it, but I don't like it because it's boring to me. Or anything. But it is a very emotional movie if you're going to go in and watch it and stuff. And it's very beautiful. It's just a boring movie to me. I kind of would say of course, Princess Mononoke is like very popular where people know it. Josh, what ended up happening with Studio Ghibli is that a couple of years ago, they brought out My Neighbor Totoro, but then Disney ended up getting like the license and stuff to bring them overseas on DVDs and stuff. So that ended up happening, and then Disney, I guess their contract ran out and they didn't renew it. So G Kids or something has it, and so now they're bringing them over. So if you go to Target now, you can still buy those movies, but now they're in still cases for the Blu-rays and stuff. And there's some of them that came out, but straight to like DVD and Blu-ray. They never came to the theaters and stuff.
Yeah, it's just distribution rights. The
Yeah.
distribution
Okay.
rights changed a couple of times because HBO or what would be Time Warner or whatever, Warner Brothers or whatever, still owns the rights to streaming them. But yeah, it's
because they've got a whole little tab on HBO Max. Like so they had this deal back right before Christmas that was like 3 months for 99, or I think it was $1.99 each or 99 cents each for 3 months. And I was like, so I jumped on it, and then they did that thing where now I'm like, I loved HBO Max too much to get rid of it. But yeah, when I was jumping through there, I'm like, I didn't know they had all, because I always wanted to watch more of the Ghibli movies, and now that I saw them there, I'm like, great, they're a place I can get to them nice and easy. So
yeah, it is nice.
Now,
I gotta jump in there.
Yeah, there are some done by Miyazaki's son on there. Like Tales of Earthsea is on there. That was done by his son. They did a 3D animated one that was directed by his son too. Stuff, but most of them are done by Hayao Miyazaki. Also, he did Castle of Callisto, which is Lupin the Third. So you can check that one out. This was before he did Studio Ghibli and everything. Last but not least, Studio Ghibli helped out with Level 5 to bring out what is that RPG? Goodness.
Yeah, they have it on, I think, on PlayStation.
Oh, Ni no Kuni.
Yeah, Ni no Kuni.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. They helped them
Studio Ghibli.
They have the two of because they have the two. There's the first one, which has a little boy in it, and then the second one where there's like the president gets transferred to like a different world. Yeah, so those are, Ed and I were talking before we went on about our massive backlogs, and those ones are in there because they both look so much fun.
Yeah.
So,
I think I have the first one on Xbox and now the second one on PlayStation because they were giving it away. I think it was a PlayStation game, I think, or something like that of the month, or maybe it's the opposite. Actually, I think I have the first one. I think I have the first one on PlayStation because they were giving it away, and the second one is in Game Pass right now, I think is what it is.
Gotcha. I have both of mine on the Switch, so that's where I got mine.
I have one on the Switch, and I have 1 to 2 on PlayStation. I don't have them for Xbox yet. I might have them for Xbox. I have to go check. I need to beat them though. But yeah, they helped make that game. So
yeah, the animation and stuff.
Yeah, and it
looks gorgeous.
Yes, if you end up loving Spirited Away, Josh, if you watch it, watch the speech because they won a Academy Award for Spirited Away, and it was pretty much one of the proudest moments for like a lot of anime fans, because at that time Disney was just winning for animated movies, and Studio Ghibli was with Spirited Away. It was the first time in our lifetime that won an Academy Award for Best Animated Movie or Film, and it's just like having that movie win. It was well deserved and everything.
Well, yeah, dude, I think it's still one of the best overall animated films, in my opinion, ever made, like ever.
I mean, there's if I know a lot of people be like, well, if you make a top 30 or top 10 and stuff, you'll definitely have a lot of movies from the 80s and the 90s from the anime. Because during that time, anime was very low key. People didn't get into it until the 2000s because Dragon Ball was such a big thing. And once Dragon Ball, allowed anime to be kind of welcome and accepted, then you had Cartoon Network bringing anime, which ended up turning into Toonami. and everything. And people,
Yeah.
unless you was a low key anime fan, a lot of stuff that they started showing in America, you already seen do some VHS tapes or like I said, public access.
Yeah, well, like Akira was the first animated movie to come to America in the theaters, I think, wasn't it? Like the first
No,
Japanese animated film. Like,
no.
or one of the, not the first ever, but like one of the first ones that like really like gained popularity here.
Popularity, yeah.
Like
Yeah,
I
Akira.
personally, I'd have to go back and revisit that movie again, but I watched it a long time ago and I never really understood the like why people liked it so much, but I don't know. I never really got into it as much, but
I think it was because it was a mixture of hand drawn animation and computer graphics and stuff.
well,
Because
yeah, I don't think I think it's just the story. I think the storyline didn't really catch me. It didn't
the
catch
story,
me like
yeah,
because
the
I think the
story,
animation and everything about that
yeah,
film is
a lot of
great,
people,
but
the
the story
animation,
didn't really.
yeah, the animation is really good, but the story's just like, huh? It's such a mind bender because you really can't focus. There's no focal point on like what really is the story. It's trying to be all philosophical,
Yeah,
and it doesn't come off that way.
yeah,
Even like Ghost in the Shell, that
yeah,
movie and everything. It's just like it's a very beautiful movie, and you wonder on how they go about it. But if you try to go in and think of the story, it's gonna take some rewatching to get the full story of it.
yeah. And
Even though
wasn't there
Ghost in the
two
Shell,
parts?
no. So there is a sequel to it, but the original Ghost in the Shell
Yeah,
anime movie, before like the second and the TV shows and all of that came out, was a complete story. It was
yeah.
based on the graphic novel. So that
Okay.
whole story was already completed. They just translated it into a movie.
Yeah,
I mentioned Ninja, like another one is Ninja Scroll.
yeah.
And Ninja Scroll had a distinct kind of look to it,
Hmm.
and it was kind of like very adult for its animation because it wasn't hentai or anything like that, but it had a particular sex scene in it.
Yeah, Ghost in the Shell was pretty provocative too in that
What Ghost in
sense.
the Shell, what Ghost in the Shell was the fact that it was a mechanical body. It
Yeah,
wasn't like human.
yeah,
So of course, like when you see that, you'd be like, okay, the mechanical body is representing like breasts and everything, but like Ninja Scroll, you would be like, oh wow, like it's 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 so it's such a movie to sit down and watch because your kids cannot watch
no,
Ninja Scroll.
no, no.
I was able to
No,
watch
I've seen all those.
I was able to watch Ninja Scroll as a kid because it's on public access, and yeah, I seen it many a times. Um, but it is a movie that people um highly regard as one of the best animated action movies. Like if you have not seen Ninja Scroll, Josh, I do recommend watching that. And just go all in focus and everything. Cause you're gonna be like, this doesn't make okay. Yeah. It'll all come together. But like literally just the first 15 minutes, your jaw is going to be on the floor and be like, yeah, they did that. Like, yeah, this is stuff that was being done in anime and
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, the
No,
only anime movie I've seen in the theaters, I think, is Pokemon the first movie, which does not
Oh,
count.
well, yeah,
Uh,
it actually count to me. It actually count because anime was not shown in the movie theaters at all. Like, if you was going to get an animated movie, the last one that I remember seeing was Care Bears, because Transformers I had seen. So after I seen Transformers the movie, Care Bears the movie was the only other one. After that, it was all Disney.
yeah, because
So,
there were some cartoons that I watched that made the leap to movie. Like Recess had a movie that came out in
Mhm.
2001. Pokemon had a couple movies right around the the turn of the millennium, and so there was a lot of fun ones there. Yu-Gi-Oh had a movie or two, I think, that came out.
I think Yu-Gi-Oh was maybe in the second or third anime movie to come out, because even something like Evangelion, Card Captor Sakura, like all of those that got movies, you would not find them in U.S. theaters at all.
Yeah, like I would have loved to see like the Naruto movies in the theater, but yeah, none of those ever came in American theaters or anything.
Digimon, that's another one I saw in theaters.
Oh, okay.
The one, it says here, I've got a list of movies that were anime movies that were released. Digimon was released in 2000. Yeah, I remember because I was big into a lot of those ones that came on like Saturday morning. Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, Digimon, like those were my big three. I remember growing up. My dad actually got into stuff, and he wasn't big into anime, but he really liked Sailor Moon, and he liked the Samurai Pizza Cats.
Yeah, I remember Samurai Pizza Cats. Yeah.
So I would watch some of those as a young kid, but the ones that I really got into are the ones that were clearly aimed at children, because you could go buy Pokemon cards or the Pokemon games or Yu-Gi-Oh. I was huge into Yu-Gi-Oh. I didn't care that the duels didn't make any sense on TV. I loved the game, and I still have my card. I have my cards up here on my desk right now, randomly. But I have my Shonen Jump books, where they actually showed the first Yu-Gi-Oh that we never got to see in America. Right,
the manga is completely different than the American TV show.
Yeah, I've seen that one that was the basis for, I think it's called Season 0 or whatever, and it's like, man, there's some crazy stuff. Man, Yami Yugi was psychotic in the beginning, where he's like playing like games, and I don't know. I think it blew my mind when I got older and I found out that there was no real Shadow Realm, that was just a euphemism for death, and they weren't gonna. And 4Kids wasn't gonna put that in a children's show. So I went this whole time. I'm like, oh, the Shadow Realm, that's a cool mechanic, and then I find out it wasn't actually a real mechanic. It just was censorship. But
because they didn't even, when Yu-Gi-Oh first started, not the animated one, but the books, it was like days. The card game didn't come out until like later on in some of the chapters, until the TV show started.
Mm-hmm. I listened to another podcast called Wizard and the Bruiser, and they basically take like topics from nerd culture and just do an hour to an hour and a half on just like research, and they're both guys who have worked at like Dorkly, so they're comedians as well, and they did a whole episode on Yu-Gi-Oh, and they were talking about that stuff that was like, until they decided, hey, we can market this to kids, it was like a whole different ball game. Like, I remember reading some of those mangas where like Yami Yugi's like got the stack of money on the guy's hand, and he's like, you can stab the knife through this money, and whatever you can stab in there, you can keep. But if you hit your hand, then you're gonna die. I'm like, oh my goodness, this is. I'm like, this is not the power. This is not the heart of the cards that I grew up watching.
Right. Yeah. And then you had like Monster Rancher, that only lasted about, I think, 3 weeks on Fox Kids. Because I didn't see that show after that in a long time.
Yeah, I remember that being on for a little while, but.
If you want to be a Patreon producer, head on over to patreon.com/BossRushMedia, and find out which tier is right for you. Our Patreon producers at the $5 tier or higher for this month are Adriel Munger, Austin Campbell, Celeste Roberts, Christian S., Sana Dierig, Francisco Santillan, and Rebecca Jewell. Thank you for your continued support.
Well, everybody.
That's probably good. Now that we got anime talk out of the way.
Once again, we're going to try again. Point it out, Josh, what is your topic for tonight?
So we were talking about a lot of games that are on the horizon, getting ready to come out. One in particular that's fairly soon, and by the time this comes out, this game will already be out, but Star Wars Jedi Survivor is set to come out this Friday, which is April 28th. And at this point right now, the reviews are out and it's looking pretty good. A lot of reviews above 8, covering in the 9s right now. So kind of what I thought was interesting about this is in terms of licensed games, like that's kind of where I thought an interesting topic is on this. Licensed games have come a long way, like much more than what I remember as a kid, where every Star Wars game, I think you could maybe pull 1 or 2 out. Knights of the Old Republic was probably your best one from 20 years ago, but they were like making games for everything. And now your licensed games tend to be really good. Like it's your Arkham Knights, your Arkham trilogy is good. The Jedi, the Fallen Order is pretty good. Then you got your stinkers. Like, I mean, who was it? Is it WB who did this game? But Suicide Squad Kills the Justice League got delayed a whole year. So
That's
I mean,
WB.
it's there's still challenges, but I'm just interested to hear what you guys think are, what's changed with licensed games to get to the point where there's a lot more better games that are licensed than there are bad games out there.
So I can easily answer that. What changed is development time. Because the thing about it is developers had to make a licensed game in time for a movie or something. Or if they were given time to do a licensed game, it was something that wasn't connected to the movie, but the popularity of that TV show. Because the thing about it is, Krusty's Cloud House on the Super Nintendo was like a Lemmys game. The Simpsons were big, but then if you go and play some of the Simpsons games that Acclaim did, you'd be like, "Oh, this is terrible," and that's why, like, when it came to licensed game in the beginning, most of it, if it didn't come from Konami or Capcom, it was most likely going to be bad. And for a lot of the licensed games and stuff, they had to be a good beat 'em up. Konami did, of course, we know the Ninja Turtles. The Turtles at the time was kind of with TMNT. The movie. You had Batman Returns, which is another game that Konami did for the Super Nintendo and stuff. So like Konami knew it, they had time and everything. Even if the movie came out and stuff, if the game was a little bit delayed and stuff, they will probably be a little bit fine with it. That's why Batman on the Batman on the Nintendo by Sunsoft is such a great game. Even though it didn't come out when the movie came out, it came out a little bit after. If you listen to the soundtrack, if you play that game as challenging as it is, it's a very great game. Then you got something like Back to the Future. You got something like
Platoon.
Which one did you say?
Platoon.
Platoon. Yeah, you got stuff like.
And let's not forget the Home Improvement, Improvement SNES game.
Yep.
Right,
Home Alone games.
Home Alone. You got Superman 64. Like you got some games that were just literally
Goonies
cash
2.
grabs.
There's no second Goonies movie, but there was a Goonies 2 game.
Right, because there was plans for a Goonies 2 to happen, and Konami had already made the game before any other went through. You have Friday the 13th on the NES. With that craziness, you had the Nightmare on Elm Street stuff. Like LGN is the name. Like they were getting a lot of licensed products to make games and stuff and keep their business afloat. Even though that a lot of that stuff wasn't good. That's why you see Disney with Capcom for a lot of the games. So you got DuckTales, you got Rescue Rangers. For some reason, not Capcom, but Domino's with Capcom because of their mascot. There's a game that Capcom did. Your Noid, yeah.
Yeah, the Noid, yeah.
Yeah. He had a game, even though that was based off a Japanese game and stuff. So it was just like Pepsi Man, the 7-Up game. EA did Michael Jordan's basketball. Like, you know, licensed games from different developers had to have enough development time to come out and stuff. And most of the like cartoon and some of the movie stuff, like the good ones at that time came from Konami back in the day. The reason why now we have better games is because these developers, of course, outside of the technology, these developers have time to develop a game, and it's not all now connect. It's not all connected to a movie, but it's connected to a franchise, I should say, or a series.
Yeah,
Well,
and I mean, sorry, Jesse, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, you look at the, and I like that they're maybe they operate because the Star Wars Fallen Order stuff that occupies the same Star Wars universe without actually having direct connections other than just references to the movies. I mean, Order 66 from Episode 3 is looms over Fallen Order just for the fact that that's kind of the setup of the game. But then you get other ones out there that are, I mean, Arkham. I haven't played those but from what I understand, they're their own universe, and it's just Batman, and that's about the connection that it is. And I think this Suicide Squad Kills the Justice League is supposed to be that same universe, albeit very loosely. But yeah, I like that they're not, tying, because you go back to the 2000, like the early 2000s in particular, there was a Lord of the Rings game released every year with the Lord of the Rings movies. Like within months of their release, you had one, and I would play them on GameCube. And for what they were fun, but I mean, they weren't games that I would say, oh, this is like the best game ever. But same thing with the Harry Potter games. Every year those movies would come out, we'd have that. But the ones that I found that are, like you said, Ed, that were the best were like Simpsons Hit and Run. I think that's one of the best licensed games of the early 2000s. And outside of just being a connection to The Simpsons, it had no, I mean, the Simpsons movie was still years away at that point. I mean, it was a GTA game with Simpsons paint on it. It was,
yeah,
and it was a little bit more kid friendly than what GTA did. I mean, it was still rated T and still had the Simpsons crude humor or whatever, but it was largely a more appeal. And that was one of the few outside of, I think, what you said, Konami doing a lot of them. I think it was Radical Entertainment did that one, and that. But yeah, like there are very few and far between from that time. Although there were some fun ones from back then.
Yeah, I always liked the South Park game, the one that was basically a first person shooter, where you'd pee on the snowball and make it yellow, and then throw it. But yeah, there was some okay ones, like, throughout the years. But I was gonna say, I think though too, I think it's just the fact that now that the video game industry makes more money than the music and the movie industry combined, like, they hold so much weight now as far as entertainment goes, that when a game is being made based around like a movie or some kind of franchise or whatever, they actually are going to put a lot of money behind it now, because they know that putting money into these games will pay off in the long run for them. Like, look at like regardless of kind of the things that kind of go around with it, but like the new Harry Potter game, the Hogwarts game and stuff, like a lot of people were looking forward to that, and and they put the time and money into that, and it seems like people are really enjoying that game. And and yeah, like when we get some of these games based around like DC characters and all that stuff, like Batman stuff, like, yeah, those are some of the better games. And it wasn't always that way, like back when video games were still for kids, like they just didn't get the money that they get now to produce these things either. I think is a big part of it. They just basically they slapped a name of a movie or something on a game back then and made some funky game, and then just put basically the characters in this weird game that really has nothing to do with the actual movie or anything, and just called it a day. They just would use the name essentially to try to sell copies of a game.
Yeah,
Well, and like, oh, sorry, Ed, go ahead.
That's why a lot of the Lego games have a lot of licensed games, because it's an easier way to not only sell their games to kids, but it's more kid friendly for kids who enjoy that franchise or enjoy that movie or TV show and everything. That's why you see a lot of the Star Wars being done in Lego form, that because they're enjoyable, sometimes mindless games, but people do have a fond enjoyment of them.
Yeah, and I was going to add on to Jesse what you were saying, that back in the 90s, as good as video games were, a lot of people argue that there was just a lot of innovation in the 90s, and even into the 2000s. Video games were very niche. They needed I felt like they needed the rub of a movie to pull in that attention. And you could slap on people going to the movies to see, I mentioned this earlier, Spider-Man from 2002. They're going to throw a game out there that continues that, because the GameCube needs to make sales, so they're going to have a Spider-Man game that loops into that because the movie's doing successful. Now I feel like it's come into its own. It's a lot different than it was 20, 30 years ago. And now you see the opposite true, where movies are now trying to get the rub off of video games with like Sonic the Hedgehog, HBO doing The Last of Us,
Uncharted,
Uncharted, Horizon heading to Netflix. Well, what I mean is it's flipped now. I think that video games were trying to get the rub off of movies, and now I think movies are like, well, we see the success, so we're getting more of them than we ever have.
So I disagree with that in a sense. I think with games at a certain point of time, they were trying to tell a story, but in a grittier way. Because I'm like, if you look at Ninja Gaiden, to a lot of us, that's the first cinematic game because of all the cutscenes that was going on. What movie was doing it unless you really was from Japan, and be able to compare that? Like nothing like that was being done or anything. It's just that technology started to advance, and some of the techniques they may have like used for movies, but a lot of that was just like, we're using CGI characters, yeah, we're using voice acting and stuff. But I'm like, you got stuff like Snatcher coming out, which was kind of inspired by what's the not Woody Harrison Ford movie. It's a sci-fi movie and I can't think of it. Ryan Gosling did the sequel to it.
Blade Runner?
Yeah, Blade Runner.
Yeah. And stuff. And that was Hideo Kojima with Snatcher and stuff. And Snatcher still to this day isn't popular, but it's well known because when Snatcher originally came out, they only did two parts. They never finished the game till the game came out to Sega CD and stuff. But it was a different take on it. And I think as games evolve, yeah, they, like I said earlier, they may have used some movie techniques, but they weren't trying to be movies. If a game was trying to be a movie, it was on the level of Xenosaga 1 and 2, where it's just like, oh, before we even play more of the game, here's a 45-minute cutscene.
Yeah.
Well, that's.
But I think what Josh was trying to say is just not that their games are trying to be movies. That games were trying to use the movie titles to sell games, and now we're seeing where TV shows and movies are trying to use video games to sell movies.
But see, that wasn't up to video game companies. That was all that marketing for a movie to be turned
Yeah.
to a game. That was from the people who the person who owned the franchise and the holders and the movie execs. They're the ones that were going to video game companies and to be like, let's get a movie tie-in. Like the gamers, the gaming developers were not come in because if you look back at it, the game developers, which a lot of it at the time were in Japan, were making their own games and stuff. And if they went out to do anything, it was going to be an anime game and stuff. We didn't get like American games and stuff like till later on. Like people don't know that Spider-Man actually was on the Atari 2600. I think it's by Activision, but Spider-Man was on the Atari 2600. Atari didn't go to Marvel to get that game done. Marvel went to them for that.
Right. I think more what I'm just saying is that it was a mutually beneficial agreement. It's I don't think
Yeah.
that video games were actively reaching out, but when Marvel's coming to say, "Hey, let's do a video game developers are like, "Well, sure, because we can get that rub off of, a successful movie." Because if you
They were
can,
they were doing it because because Marvel was paying for the development and they needed to keep their business open. That's why
well,
they
and
was really doing it.
and if you look at it from a marketing perspective, if you can name associate things, I mean, Marvel Comics is doing this right now, where they're shifting storyline, and obviously it's a different realm, but they're shifting storylines so that they can align better with the movies. For example, I don't think Nick Fury was black until Samuel L. Jackson showed up on screen, and they added him into the Ultimate Universe to look a little bit more like Samuel L. Jackson. Because the original Nick Fury was your standard white flat top jarhead from the military, and then when they saw that Samuel L. Jackson had such good success in the movies, they were like, well, we got to make sure our comics are more in line with the movies. I think maybe that happened a little bit before, but they started pushing that Nick Fury a lot more prominent than the older
Yeah.
Nick Fury because he's showing up in Iron Man 2, and they're trying to get the rub off of the movies back into the comics, which comics really struggled in the late 2000s, early 2010s, and the MCU really rejuvenated it. So more, I think my point is just that video games were a lot more willing to do these games because, like you said, they want to keep the lights on. They want to do these things that are going to bring in money, just whether they're good or not. And now you're seeing that video games, they can make a good licensed game without it being a, well, we just need to keep the lights on project.
Yeah, they could make a good licensed game if it comes from the right developer. That's the problem with it. Because I always argue, I'm just like, Activision is a big company. And Spider-Man, all those games that's coming out from Spider-Man, people who feel like Insomniac's Spider-Man is the greatest and it's the biggest thing. I bet you if you looked in a lot of people's libraries, when it comes to Spider-Man, they don't own pretty much any of those Activision games. Not because they're Spider-Man games, it's because as at a point in time, people thought those Spider-Man games were bad and they came from Activision. Now, you get someone as Insomniac who has done Ratchet and Clank, who has done Fuse, who has done the Resistance, who has somewhat a very good track record, and because it's connected to Sony so much, people were just like, I'm going to give this game a try. Not because it's Spider-Man, because this is Insomniac on a Sony product. And it's exclusive to Sony. So that's why we're going to make it sell good. Okay, we know that their quality is good. Why are we having a blast in here? Because we know Insomniac know how to make games. And this is why it's winning awards and stuff. If you care about Spider-Man, you would have had, I'm gonna say suffer, but you would have had a lot of those past games that Activision and other companies did with Spider-Man. But because people don't, they act brand new because this game came from Insomniac. Insomniac is, and I respect Insomniacs to the highest degree, but people cannot act brand new that Spider-Man, that this is the best, not just this is the best game for Spider-Man, where you were even interested in Spider-Man when it was at a different company. if you was into Spider-Man, you would have been there from Activision, and then even when it came to Insomniac, be like, well, I passed the play, I pay and beat the last games. Now I know that because it's ever Insomniac, I have a feeling that this game is going to be greater. You know, I think that was my thing about Spider-Man. Is that's like just don't act brand new to it, even though this kind of license has been out for years and stuff. Same with Batman and everything. You know, Batman went through a lot before the Arkham games because it was just like I said earlier, Batman on the Nintendo by Sunsoft, great game. Batman Returns on the Super Nintendo, great game. Batman and Robin on Sega Genesis was a challenging, but it was a great game. And then you get all through the N64 and PS1 and PS2 ports. You get through Catwoman, you get through all of this other stuff. And then nobody liked those games. Those games were getting a lot of average and low ratings. And then Arkham Asylum comes out, and they mixed in this 3D gameplay with Metroid style kind of adventure, and it reaches to the top. People love it, and in fact, that it changed the adventure genre to a point where other games were trying to be like Batman Arkham Asylum. You know, so it's just like, even though Batman's been through some tough stuff, I think people in the modern day know that the licensed games are very great because they come from trustworthy developers. And I think a lot of those modern gamers don't know the history of the old retro and past games. So if you're jumping into games of now with licensed stuff, of course you're gonna really appreciate them. But you go play some of their older stuff from that franchise, you'll be like, yikes.
Yeah, as now fans are making games of, it's fans of that content making the games, and they're like trying to do like an amazing job, like, like these Jedi Fallen Order games and stuff like those. Those are like real passion behind the making of those games, like people that love Star Wars and just want to make sure that they're doing a good game and doing it right.
People know that people know that Respawn knows how to make some great games.
Mm-hmm.
So they're gonna they're gonna be like, okay, we're gonna trust Respawn, because don't forget Star Wars Battlefield, both of them, that should have destroyed that contract with Disney on all the craziness that happened with that game. That should have destroyed it, but somehow Fallen Order was a big success. And I feel like Jedi Survivor is going to be a big success because Respawn is a trustworthy developer for EA.
I need to correct myself from earlier. The Black Nick Fury started appearing in the Ultimate Universe in 2001. However, I was correct that he was there, but they didn't start featuring him prominently until about 2009, 2010, after the Iron Man movie came out. So, correction there.
Was that the Avengers?
Yeah, so he appeared in as the, what was it? I forget. So it was in the Ultimate Universe, which is not the main universe. There are so many universes in the comics, so I apologize for the convolutedness of this. The Ultimate Universe is like,
it's a DC Marvel comic. It's never convoluted.
So the Ultimate Universe, I think, is basically the number 2 universe there, that started up in the early 2000s, and originally that Nick Fury looked a little bit more like Vin Diesel, but then the artist wanted it to look more like Samuel L. Jackson, and so changed the design to look more like him. And then it just so happened that they cast him as Nick Fury in Iron Man, in the first Iron Man in that last scene. But so correction there. They pushed him more to connect with the movies, but not. He did not appear like shortly before the movies or right at the time of the movies. So that's my bad.
Yeah, and I don't really see a lot of Nick Fury in just the video games, like the Avengers game that came out. Like, I don't even know if he's in there, even though people got upset that the movie cast wasn't voicing the characters in the Avengers, but that's another discussion for another day.
Right.
So, but I think now with a lot of licensed games, they are better. They definitely have slowed down and stuff. Because I'm just like, man, we had stuff like The Matrix that Sega did, and that terrible mess. I think what we never got though as a licensed game is we never got the dramas or like stuff that could be like a walking simulator and stuff. We never got that, but yet people were making movies out of The Sims, and stuff. And it used to be bunkers crazy and stuff.
Well, red versus blue.
Red versus Blue from Halo. That was funny as
that show was so good.
Yeah. And even some of the anime licensed games and stuff, because they didn't get movies and stuff, they had to come from Bandai Namco. But like Astro Boy, when that movie came over, which I still think is a good movie, don't know why people didn't like it. Treasure did the Game Boy Advance version, and people loved that. That game got high ratings and everything. So I just think that now in this time and era, a lot of those games, are by trusted developers. Like that Wolverine game that's come from Insomniac, that's going to sell. And why? Because it's Insomniac. Not
Right.
because it's a Wolverine. It's literally because of Insomniac.
Speaking of anime games, I've heard really good things about this One Piece Odyssey game that came out last year.
Mm-hmm.
That a lot of people have said that even if you're not a One Piece fan or even an anime fan, that this is still a pretty good game. That's regardless of what the origins are, it's still a pretty good, which I think bodes well, because I think a lot of licensed games tend to lean heavily into their fan base, and why wouldn't you? But when you can make a game that's going to appeal to people who aren't even fans of the genre or of the license, it's going to be mass appeal. Because I mean, I know what One Piece is. I know the general idea. I don't know anything else other than that, and that game looks really fun to me. So that's a good job of an anime licensed game.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's I do have it for my Series X, but once again, it's wrapped up in the paper. I should say, in the plastic. So, but yeah, and not to sound angry, everybody, but yeah, that is my opinion on this topic. Any more opinions? Any more thoughts, Jesse, Josh?
You scorched us all, Ed.
Okay. So, of course, we're just going to have to get right into it and address it. Today, the United Kingdom's Competition and Marketing Authority, or CMA, have announced that they prevented Microsoft's acquisition of Activision Blizzard over concerns that the deal would damage competition in the cloud gaming market. And people are kind of odd about this. And it kind of seems that Activision Blizzard has made a statement. It says an Activision Blizzard spokesperson issued an even puncher, almost threatening response. The CMA's report contradicts the ambition of the UK to become an attractive country to build technology business. It said, "We will work aggressively with Microsoft to reverse this on appeal. The report's conclusions are a disservice to UK citizens who face increasingly dire economic prospects. We will reassess our growth plans for the UK global innovators, large and small. Innovators, large and small, will take note that. We'll take note of that. It should be. Despite all this rhetoric, the UK is clearly focused. The UK is clearly closed for business, and everything. And what ended up happening is that the CMA pretty much feel like the cloud gaming competition. They were trying to find some way, saying that the deal would hurt it, but they never explained on how they would hurt them and everything. And Microsoft responded that, hey, they were just like, we're still providing more work and we're still doing 10-year deals and contracts, even with people who are doing cloud gaming. And so people who like, I don't know if Jim Ryan responded. I don't think he has. He may have. I'm not sure just yet. But a lot of people are really mad at the CMA for this because they feel like blocking this blocking this deal because of cloud gaming is just an excuse of not letting it go through and everything. So my thing is to you guys, do you think that this deal now will happen because they got to go through the appeals process, or do you think that that like if it doesn't go through, what happens to the contracts that Microsoft made with everybody? Like they made with Nintendo, and they made with Epic and all of these other companies and stuff. What happens then?
I honestly, I think that it probably will eventually go through. I think the thing is this is just a lot of people that don't want it to happen, trying to delay it. I do think it will end up happening. Something will get figured out, but I just it's somewhat of a new thing. Like it really hasn't we really haven't seen this kind of stuff a whole lot until like Microsoft started kind of picking up like these companies and picking up these developers and stuff. And they didn't have a lot of studios that were doing a lot of stuff, and so like if you want to make more games, you have to make more studios. But like I don't understand why it's such a big deal that they're buying up a studio versus them just building a different one. Like could they technically like just be like, okay, well, it's no longer Activision. It's no longer Activision Blizzard. They just make up a new name and they no longer, they just say Activision is no more and call them something different, but it is them, and Microsoft buy that instead. Like I mean, like like I'm sure there's a way that you could get around doing it, but like what would the difference be if Microsoft created a new studio? Okay, they're not acquiring anything. They create a new studio and they just happen to hire the whole entire crew that was Activision that works under this new. Okay, what's the difference?
The difference is that Activision would have to literally close their studio.
Yeah.
And had to all go under to Microsoft, for a new one. But the problem is that what happens to all those licenses that Activision Blizzard has? Because the thing about it is, if Activision is closing their doors, they have to sell those licenses. Microsoft can't get them unless they go in and
buy them.
Those licenses.
Yeah, which they basically would.
But the thing about it is, but that's double the money in a sense, because not only do they have to buy all of those licenses, don't forget you got to buy all the stuff that's from Blizzard too, and you got to buy all the stuff that's from Activision and stuff. And so the thing about it is with Activision, if they're going to sell those IPs to Microsoft for them to own, that means each license and everything that's going to that has to go through like a whole process and
Yeah.
everything on
But
that.
but I mean, when you acquire a company, when you acquire them, any IP that come with that company that they
Exactly.
own,
But
that's
if
being
every,
paid for
right,
already.
but
But
if
that's already
but if
being paid. They're
but if
already
they
paying
are
for all that stuff.
but you got to realize, using your example, Jesse, if Marcus starts a new studio and only hires the employees, they're only hiring the employees. They're not getting the licenses. Activision is still a company.
Yeah,
Activision and Microsoft Studios will still be two separate things.
yeah. They're still
If
paying
Microsoft,
for that. They're still paying for all those
no,
IP even when they
no,
buy
they're not.
Activision.
No, if there are just if Microsoft Studios, this new studio, if they only hire the employees from Activision, Activision still has those IPs. You only hired the people. You didn't buy the studios, you didn't buy the IPs or anything. You only are hiring the employees to work at your studio. In order for Microsoft to get those IPs from Activision, they had to pay Activision to buy those IPs.
Yeah,
So
which they
Activision
do
was
that either way. They do that
but
even if they buy
Activision as
Activision.
but Activision would still be in business. I'm talking about using your example.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. So if
They would
Activision
still buy them. I'm just saying they would just buy them. They would have to
but
buy
they
them the
can't
same way they would.
but they can't but they can't because then the thing
Why
about
can't
it
they?
is that because then what does Activision Blizzard have?
They don't
If
need to have
Activision
anything because they're going to this
but
new
then
name.
no, they're not going
No,
they're
I'm
not
just
going
saying
in.
like if they do it that way, they would
No,
go to
but the
the
thing
different
about but
name
the
and they
thing
would buy
but the
that
thing
stuff and
about
bring it with
but
them.
the thing about is that in order for Microsoft to have those IPs, they have to buy them from Activision.
Yeah.
Activision has to still
I'm
right,
saying that. I'm saying they'll
but
buy them from
Activision
them.
but Activision still has to be in business in order for them to sell the IPs. So Activision will still be in business. Microsoft was a new studio will still be in business. So that's two different businesses. If Microsoft buys those IPs from Activision, Activision as a business is still open. They have nothing. They don't have Overwatch. They don't have Diablo. They don't have Call of Duty. They don't have Spyro, Crash. Whatever that Activision sold to Microsoft, Microsoft now owns them. So Activision now they have two choices. They could close for business, or they had to start all over with new IPs.
Yeah, well, no, I'm saying that's what I'm saying though. Is what I'm saying is Activision wouldn't be Activision anymore. They would when they're making the contract. Listen, just hold on a second. When they're making the contract, all they would have to say is when Microsoft is buying this IP from Activision, that in the Ed, why can't they make a contract? Why wouldn't they be able to make a contract?
They wouldn't be able to make a contract once you sell the IP and everything. If Microsoft buys it, that company does not own it anymore.
I know, but you're not listening to what I'm saying, Ed.
No, but there's
you're not listening to me.
But what I'm saying is there wouldn't be no contract, because if you're buying something from somebody, that's a sale to you. That would be a complete sale. There is no contract, because the thing about it is what's going to be broken in the contract. If I already paid you for Call of Duty and I own it, there's no contract. I own Call of Duty. You have to transfer everything to me. So there's no contract. You can't there's no reneging or anything on it, because there's no contract. The contract would have to be
when you're in the process of selling something, you can have stipulations on things and trade-offs and things. I'm saying, like, if they say that they're going to buy this stuff, it's going to be owned by this new company, they can have it in the process of selling that one of the rules of selling, if Activision is going to let you buy these IP, this is what we ask of you, is that this new company that you are making, why not? Like, I don't know why.
It doesn't work that way. Once a company, because let's talk about Rare. Rare is a good example. Yeah. When Nintendo sold Rare to Microsoft, all that stuff went to Microsoft.
Yeah.
the games that Rare made, all that went to Microsoft. But the only stuff that stayed with Nintendo was like Donkey Kong and stuff. Because why? Nintendo owns that IP.
Yeah.
Anything that Rare made, Microsoft owns. So if Microsoft
Except
wants
for
to
GoldenEye.
GoldenEye is
That was a different thing too.
That one was different because, like, going back to your topic, Josh likes this game. But the thing about it is that why you think Killer Instinct is owned by Microsoft? Because Nintendo owned Microsoft, but Rare made the arcade version, and I believe that became a Rare game. But yet Midway published the arcade game, where Nintendo published the Super Nintendo version and N64. So when Microsoft bought it, Nintendo gave Microsoft Killer Instinct because that was a Rare product.
Like, my thing is I'm just saying that what Activision can do is they could sell all their IP off to them. Okay, they're still a company, and yes, they no longer have anything now because they sold all their IP to Microsoft. Okay, now Microsoft owns them, and they have this new studio, and then Activision closes, and now all those people go over to that studio that they created. Now they have the IP. They have the people who made the IP. It's no different.
The question would be is, why would Activision close if they have all that money? If they're still in business,
why are they trying to be sold to Microsoft at all right now?
To stay in business. It's a business deal.
I know, but they could be a different name, is what I'm saying. They could be the same thing, but a different name.
Well, Josh,
owned by Microsoft.
I'm gonna let you answer because I know it's just like
I just don't get why that one.
Because I think you don't understand the business aspect of it. Is that if Activision sells their IPs to Microsoft, Microsoft owns them. There is no contract. If Microsoft paid $55 billion for all those IPs, I'm just using that for example. What has to happen is Activision has to give them everything. There was no stipulations. You got to give them the engine. You got to give them the art assets. You got to give them everything. You don't have to give them the studios, but you have to give them everything because now Microsoft owns all of that and the IP. Activision would have to start all over again. They could use whatever engine they want to, but in fact, if they want to use that engine, they have to make a new engine and name it something different because Microsoft owns it. And once Microsoft owns it, anything Activision does that's trying to be Microsoft, that's copyright infringement.
But see, the thing is Microsoft has had plenty of games that they've been made by companies, and they let them have the game back. Even though they don't own it anymore.
Jesse, okay, Josh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. I'll be honest. This is a little bit out of my. I've been meaning to read up more on this. I mean, I see both your points, and I'll be that middle guy. You know what Jesse's suggesting, I don't think is that crazy because, here's my wise wrestling knowledge. Ed, when WCW went out of business in 2001, WWF bought WCW. But
hold up, stay right there, because WCW went out of business. Jesse is saying that while Activision is in business, that Microsoft create a side business. He didn't say that Activision. He didn't say.
Yeah, but is Activision gonna survive with all the sexual assault allegations going around?
The thing about it is that Activision Blizzard will have to shut down and sell their assets before Microsoft can buy them or get their employees. You have to shut down.
Is that all off? Is that a crazy thought?
But he's saying that while Activision is still open for business, that Microsoft starts a business and people just leave Activision and go to Microsoft.
No, they closed down. I'm saying they closed down and they become.
You didn't state it that.
Yes, I did.
That way. No,
yes,
you didn't.
I did.
No, you didn't.
He did, Ed. I heard it.
He did not. He did not state. He
yes,
said.
I did, Ed.
He said.
I said that they would create that.
If they created a studio.
And then they shut down, and then they go over there.
No,
that's what I said.
You said if they create a
Okay, I
and get the
didn't say
employ-
that.
and get the employees there.
I'm lying about what I said, I guess.
No, I'm just saying the way that you stated
Whatever.
stated no,
Let's just
no,
move on.
because no, I'm saying the way that you stated it was that Microsoft creates a studio and people from Activision goes to them. You didn't say that
Sure,
Activision
Activision
closed
closed.
down. And then I said if Activision closed, they have to sell that IP.
Yeah.
Okay, but I said if Microsoft buys those IPs when
Yes.
they make their new studio, Activision is still open.
No, they would close after they bought them all because they don't need to be Activision anymore because they're going to go over to this new one.
But then that's going to be a potential risk because then Activision will have to sell those IPs, and you know how hungry
Made
Sony
a lot of
is.
money.
Right. You know how hungry Sony is. Jim Ryan is going to do his best to get Call of Duty.
Yeah.
If Jim Ryan and
But
Sony,
if they don't want to sell to them, they don't have to.
If Jim Ryan and Sony, they would have to. If Jim Ryan and Sony wants to put up $95 billion just to get Call of Duty, because
they wouldn't be able to. They don't have that kind of money.
I'm
sorry, but Microsoft every day of the year is going to beat Sony and
I understand that. I understand that. But
there's nothing Sony can offer them that they're gonna.
But let me tell you, if Jim Ryan and Sony was offering just making a hypothetical, was offering $95 billion just to get Call of Duty from Activision, and Activision took the deal, you're really going to see some exclusive that no one is going to get it. What can they say? They can't say it's a competition thing because IP is different than a whole company business.
Mm-hmm. It's just not going to happen, though. There's never going to be a day where Sony's going to outbid someone.
I'm just saying as a hypothetical. If Sony bought Call of Duty's IP from Activision and they had that $95 billion, you would never see it on anybody else's platform. Why? Because they're buying the IP. They're not buying the company.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I'm just like, if Microsoft was going to open up another company and stuff, it would be better for them to buy all the IP from Activision. Activision could close after that because they can't say nothing. And then Microsoft could, like you said, start a new company, get those employees, and then literally start making contracts once again.
Mm-hmm.
Why?
That's what I was saying, yeah.
Right. And the UK can't say, no UK or US can say anything about it because we didn't buy the company, we bought the IP. You can buy IPs. Where's the competition in that? It is none. If I buy your IP, I have the right to control it and distribute it the way that I want. I didn't buy you as a company. I bought your IP.
Yeah, and like I was saying, the thing is what Microsoft can do then is like they've done with other companies where they owned the rights to the company and they own the rights to the game, but they can, it's up to Microsoft. They can say, hey, we have you here. You guys can have full control over these IP again under this new name. Like you guys can go back to having having the control over it that you had as Activision. Now that we have everything, we have the things that we needed, we can give it to you. And, the only thing that essentially ends up changing in the end, other than having to go through, a couple more hoops to make it happen, is just a different name. They're just no longer Activision Blizzard, That's what I was trying to say. Like that, it just, I mean, there's a way around everything.
And that's why I said, that's why I had to bring clarification to it. Is that
that's what I was saying.
Okay, because the thing about it is, it's just like we already reiterated. That's why I said that it would be better for Microsoft if they bought the IP. They could buy the IP. Activision Blizzard could still stay in business, but they won't have no IP, and they would have to restart over. Now, if they did make the decision of closing down because they want to end their business, they have a right to do that. Activision literally has a right to do that. Because what ends up happening is that all the employees will be fired or let go. if they see that Microsoft is hiring for a new studio, and those people on their resume put that I used to work at Activision and I used to be in this department working on this game, Microsoft could go right ahead and hire them. What no government can't say that you can't do that because that's a different hiring practice. That's a whole different way. You can do stuff legally.
Yeah.
It may seem illegal and sneaky, but if they follow the legal process, they can. So if they want to give Activision $67.5 billion for all their IP, go right ahead. Because then Microsoft now owns that IP, and Activision will have to give them everything that's connected to that IP. Then they could close their doors if they want to, and hire the people who used to work there. Or those employees could go to somewhere else.
Yeah, I think something will happen. It's just being delayed is all. I mean, I don't know. Like I just think it, because like the thing is like I've seen people mention that, like even if Microsoft acquires them, was to acquire this, they still don't have as many studios as Sony owns, like as Sony is like has a control over. So that's why it's kind of dumb. Is it like the thing is a lot of these studios that Microsoft have are, like they're doing all different kinds of things. They're not just like these big massive AAA titles like that they're focusing on. They have, like more indie feeling type stuff that they're trying to do as well. And it's like, trying to have more of a mass appeal versus just focusing on like these AAA, titles.
I think Microsoft do have the AAA. It's just
yeah, they do.
They're trying to create new IPs. And Sony is in a worse position than Microsoft, I would say, when it comes to games and everything. And the reason why I say that, and I know people are going to be upset, is that Sony kind of have only relied on pretty much 3 companies for theirs: Naughty Dog, Insomniac, and now Guerrilla, in a sense. Sorry, Ghost of Tsushima and everything, but they rely on those 3 companies to make most of their games and most of their profit. A lot of their Japanese developers haven't heard of peep. A lot of their smaller companies haven't heard of peep. Why? Because a lot of those sales for those games didn't do well as like Insomniac or Naughty Dog or Guerrilla Games. Where Microsoft, yeah, they may have some hit and misses here and there, but pretty much, 3 studios, regardless of what state they're in, they're one of the most recognizable developers at that studio. Who's the developers of Gears?
Coalition.
The Coalition, because Gears is a big thing. The Coalition is recognized as a really big company there. The Forza Horizon team is definitely big because the Forza team, Forza Horizon, regardless of what people think about the sales, Forza Horizon has become the #1 leading game from Microsoft over Halo. That's huge. And if you think I'm lying, look at all the comments people say about Halo and how that game and how that series has been compared to Forza Horizon not selling so well, but being more recognizable and everything.
Yeah. And I mean, just in general, though, like all the Microsoft games that have come out, or the games that have been, Microsoft Studio games, since the Series X have like all been like, at least anywhere. I think it was like 7.5 or 8.0 and higher, something like that. Like everything, it hasn't been like record shattering or anything like that, but they've been good rated games, you know, and it's like, and it's been steady. It's been you know.
Right, and ZeniMax is big with Arcane and the people who make Doom and stuff. I'm sorry, everybody, I'm getting old. I can't remember all these studios, but like ZeniMax is a big company. They have about 12 to 15 studios. Regardless of what you think about Fallout and Hi-Fi Rush and Ghostwire Tokyo, those are some great games that they have a great legacy of games that have came from that company out of ZeniMax. You know, so you can't knock them for Microsoft for that. You got Ninja Theory, who like nobody was really caring about, but DMC Devil May Cry was a great game. Enslaved was a great game. They really got their recognition with Hellblade because they put the time and effort. But Ninja Theory has always been a fantastic developer ever since that one game from PlayStation 3 that they made. You know, like Ninja Theory they got their respect, but they slowly got their respect because they care more about the product that they're making. And you can see it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like their new game, whatever they're working on, looks jaw-dropping gorgeous if that is real graphics. To see Ninja Theory play around with Unreal Engine 5 is beyond bonkers.
Yeah. Yeah, like there's some good, if you haven't yet, you go on, they have a YouTube channel and stuff, and they do a whole bunch of video blog type things where they show like what they've been doing and the technology they've been using to make their games and things like that, and how they're using cameras to take like scenic shots of real sceneries and then using that, you know, pulling that information into their games and stuff. Because the one game that they're working on that takes place in just a room in a house, essentially, they tried to focus it down to being just a house that everything takes place in, so then they could really focus on the detail of the floor and the walls and make it look as realistic as possible.
Right,
it's really cool, like watching some of that stuff they have.
And Microsoft just only thing that's stopping them is that they just need to promote. They just need to make sure that people recognize the game and stuff. Like instead of just saying that it's on Game Pass, that's not good enough. You need to remind people that this game is not only out, but here are the ratings. This is the game that people are talking. Like, literally, look how hard Nintendo went in with Metroid Prime. And they went hard after they realized that the physical versions was hard to, where people were having a hard time to find the physical version. Nintendo responded, hey, we're going to get more copies out. And that gave Nintendo sign, let's market this bad baby and let people know that Metroid Prime is out on Switch. Because we had, by the looks of these physical sales, we must have been doing something good. You click on YouTube, and almost for 2.5 weeks, every YouTube video that you was clicking on when you was getting a commercial, Nintendo Switch, click Metroid Prime available. Like Nintendo went hard on the marketing. And Microsoft needs to do that. That's the only thing that's literally holding them back for games. And what are they gonna do if they do acquire Activision? Activision wants some marketing.
Mm-hmm.
They just don't want that. Oh, it's on Game Pass and walk away. Oh no, Bobby Kotick, if he's still there, will not accept that because he want them coins. He want that money.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Microsoft definitely has the money to, you know, be putting commercials during the Super Bowl and things like that. You know, like Activision is, you know, has been known for doing big ads and things like that in the past. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm sure Microsoft, you know, because that's the thing is we're getting to the point now of where we're going to start seeing some of these bigger hitting games, you know, like that Microsoft, you know, would probably want to put more money behind, you know, actually getting ads and stuff out there for. And I think we'll see that. I do think we'll see a lot of that, for Starfield and stuff like that. I do think we will see that stuff.
And
Like,
this,
because I mean, they do have a lot of stuff, a lot of commercials for Microsoft, but a lot of times it is Game Pass. It's like Game Pass stuff, or like, them pushing kind of just like a smattering of all the things that you can get with their service, and things like that. But
and I understand that may be a smartphone thing on Microsoft, but I'm like, for the gamers, they may already subscribe to that service. They also, but some people may not. They just want to know, that game came out, what is in that game, what can you reveal and stuff.
yeah.
And I'm sorry, Josh. Sorry, Jesse. This may felt like an AX episode discussion argument. But it's. I think with this deal and with the UK holding it back, I think the UK just came with an excuse for it not to go through and stuff. And so I think it's doing a real big disservice. And I think if they actually took the time to look into cloud gaming, they could see if, like, give us more understanding on how that will hurt this deal will hurt cloud gaming and everything. So, but that's anything else, Josh? I'm sorry, I didn't let you talk. My apologies.
I think, reading over, I was reading an article, and see, Ed, you gave me time to read up on this. I was reading a New York Times article, and it looks like that this one, because I think this is going to have to lead to some very creative business work on this end, because it looks like this British ruling is going to bolster up the other countries, because the US FTC is already looking to use this as precedent for blocking the deal in the United States. And I think a lot of countries are going to follow suit on that. And then looking at the end of the article, it talked about a professor of law at the London School of Economics said that with it blocked, there's a lot that Microsoft and Activision have to do to be able to get that reversed on appeals. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them start to come up with some creative business that's going to get that over the finish line in one way or the other, just because it looks like, this is going to set the precedent moving forward with other countries. So, it's unfortunate, but I mean, so somebody's cracking open a couple beers over at Sony right now.
Well, we shall see what happens. I really feel like if this deal happens, it will happen in the next 3 years. So
Yeah.
we'll literally see what happens. But we're at that, everybody. That's it for pointing out. Jesse, you have our Boss Rush banner. So what is the topic for tonight?
So I pulled the one that the Boss Rush banter, that who is your favorite video game inspired musician?
Oh goodness.
I don't see. I was having a hard time picking something, and I was just kind of like, I wonder if I shouldn't have messaged them that I was going to be picking this, because it is kind of a hard one. I think I personally, I know a bunch of, I have a bunch of bands that I like that are inspired by video games, and and stuff like that. So I mean, it was easier for me, but I don't know if you guys want me to just go first and you guys think about it a moment, or
give us more context of.
Well, so what's a band or a musician or whatever that their content, their music that they make is comes out, they have influence of video games, or that kind of culture in their content that they make,
And who produced this story, this article for Boss Rush?
Shoot.
That was Ouch, I believe.
Yeah.
Ouch wrote that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, there. He brought up a rapper. Was it Dan Bull that I guess uses sings about different video games, and like his raps and stuff are about different video games like Skyrim and Minecraft and things like that. There's the one of my favorite bands, Teenage Bottle Rocket, is they're a punk band that are very similar to Green Day. Like if you like Green Day, you basically, if you were to listen to Teenage Bottle Rocket, you'd be like, okay, yeah, like this is like skater punk kind of, you know, punk rock. And they sing the song Steve, about Steve from Minecraft, and there's the whole music video and everything they did for it and all that. But like things like that, like where a band has kind of like written songs, or the style of how they make their music, like they've had game influence in it or whatever. That's kind of what I'm looking for. Like if you have any bands that you know of that are hardcore video game like fans, and it reflects in their music.
Well, the most popular one would be Mega Ran, with his album Forever Famicom. His rap name is Random, but he goes by Mega Ran when he's talking about video games, because he has Forever Famicom. He has done an album about Final Fantasy, and he takes like video game beats and you know uh produces like these songs and stuff, and like he's on tour and everything. In fact, Mega Ran is in River City Girls too. He has exclusive
Okay.
track for them and everything. So for me it would have to be Mega Ran. We have we just had a composer, Mustin. He has a Mario mixtape out, and it does different styles and everything, and it's so good. We had just had them on Nintendo Power Block, but time you guys see this, that episode is already available. So go check out that discussion and talking with him, and we literally talked about video game music and hip hop and doing different genres and everything, and his music is really really good. I've been getting into his songs and stuff and really liking it. And then there's some people like on YouTube who has um, who has made some tracks too. But Josh, I'm gonna turn it over to you. Who is your like artist that's been influenced by video game music, I should say?
I'm kind of at a loss with this one just because a lot of I don't think in at least the music I listen to, I don't see a lot of the um, influence on one band. I would say there are some songs that I like and music videos that come out of those that I think definitely draw the inspiration, or they might outright mention it. I'm thinking we'll go back old with the Who. Pinball Wizard is like an original. It's not a video game, but it's arcade game. You know, there's a song by a rapper out of Houston named what's it called? The rapper's name is Lil Flip, and it's Game Over.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And he's got like in sampling in it. There's like, let's see, it's got like Pac-Man playing in the background on the beat, and then he does a remix version that's pretty cool. That when he drops the beat in the second verse, it's like it starts to do when Mario goes into the pipe and goes underground. It starts doing that part in the second verse, and so like I mean, a lot of my answers are there. I can talk about other people I know who are influenced by it, but as far as music, I think it's just every here and there. I've found some stuff. I'm trying to remember who it was. There was a band that did metal covers of the Legend of Zelda music, and I don't know who it was, but again, that podcast, Hello Hyrule, they were playing some of that music on there, and they were it sounded cool. Like it was like we're talking 2005 like death metal type cover of Zelda music, and it was so cool sounding. So I'm trying to figure out what that band name was, but I liked them a lot. But I wish I had more for that. I
I found an artist called DJ Cutman on YouTube. He has one of the tracks from Yoshi's Woody World. And when you listen to the track, you can hear like the hip hop in it and stuff. And he used like the beat from the game because the beat from the game is really like light and really laid back and stuff. And then you hear it, and you just be like, oh, this is a hit, this is a cut. So DJ Cutman would definitely be one for me. It's not.
Mine,
so good.
That metal band that covers them, they're called L Train.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, they're pretty cool. It's pretty cool every time I've listened.
So Drake's Hotline Bling was used with the we menu music and everything. The yeah, that was for Hotline Bling. Stuff.
What I think is cool about that, is not just music, but I think you see it how video game has become more mainstream. It's more accepted by, Drake sampling the Wii Shop Channel music, and Drake's a big deal. Like that's a really big deal. And I'll go into wrestling because this is what I know. Cody Rhodes, the son of Dusty Rhodes, is like the biggest Legend of Zelda fan. That at one point he had Triforce boots when he was wrestling. Yeah. And that's a big deal. Another guy named AJ Styles wrestled in Japan for several years and is like the biggest retro game collector ever. So I think it's cool to see, musicians, wrestlers, other mainstream people really kind of embrace this, because I think it really helps. Because growing up, for me, video games were never considered the quote unquote cool thing to do. Now they're a lot more. It's just an accept. Oh, you like video games? Cool. Yeah, we're nerds, but it's at the same time that's not a pejorative like it used to be. Yeah. And I think it's helped having, musicians, among others, really help bolster that up. So that's what I can contribute, because I'm not as aware of ones who get the inspiration. I'm definitely going to be looking though, because I'm sure there's some that I listen to.
I got a couple that I'll mention.
Jesse, you might know this. Charles Hamilton, the rapper.
I don't think.
Okay, Charles Hamilton, because he connected himself to Sonic the Hedgehog.
Oh, okay.
So he has this. He uses the single ladies beat ring on it, but he also used like Sonic's hop thing and the ring sound effects from Sonic.
Oh, okay.
And he mixed that up as a song and created a beat around it.
Okay.
Yeah. He could, some of his mixtapes in Oldenburg, when he rapped, it was always Sonic related.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I can't believe you didn't hear about Charles Hamilton.
I don't know. I might have heard like his stuff at some point, but I
take your hip hop card away from me.
Well, yeah. Well, and like so. For me, one of the bands that I like in high school and stuff that I had gotten into was Mindless Self-Indulgence, MSI. Like they've always been very, very influenced by like video games and stuff like that. A lot of I think a lot of synth based like bands that have a lot of synth and like to use they're kind of on the nerdier side, tend to pull a lot of stuff from video games when it comes to the synth part. And so that they were kind of one of those. They had a side project called the Left Rights, where they pulled kind of just a bunch of things as well. That's the one where they have the what is it? Genesis. What is it? The Genesis, Sega Genesis. The whole song is them singing about like Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis. It's 16 mother effing goddamn bits, and like the whole song is good. But another band that I listen to is called Horse the Band. They like literally their album. What is it called? It's called The Mechanical Hand. The first song is called Birdo. The second song is A Million Exploding Suns. House of Boo. And like all their music is really, really hardcore like metal, but they have the 8-bit style synth throughout all of their music and stuff, and they've got a lot of this, like they'll use like the styling of like the sounds even and stuff like that would be in cutscenes in the very, very early stages of like Nintendo games and stuff. Like they would have like sounds playing like to go along with like what's going on. And not necessarily music, but just the sound effects that they were using the 8-bit sound to make. They even use some of that stuff in the intros to their songs. And then, and so a lot of their music and like their synth part of their music is all focused around getting that sound of what it was like playing games like back in the original Nintendo days and the original Sega Genesis days. So they definitely have a lot of that. There's also another band that I listen to called Screaming Monkey Boner. that also, they have a song. They did a song called Smash TV. They did they did some songs based around video games, and a lot of these bands like that, yeah, like they're hardcore like metal, but then they have this 8-bit sounding synth stuff going on to it. That's all focused around video games, like the sounds that you would hear in video games and things like that. So yeah, like there's a couple of them. That's why I picked this topic, is I've found some really good ones, and Horse the Band for sure is like one of my favorite when it comes to video game inspired music. But yeah, that's pretty much it for me though with that.
I think Josh anymore. I said all I could say.
Yeah, I think I've stretched my knowledge, although I found a list on Billboard that has songs that have sampled sound or bits from video game music, and there's quite a few big names on here. David Bowie was on here. Omicron, the Nomad Soul. 50 Cent, You Ain't No Gangsta, sampled bits of video game. It's cool to see, because I think it happens and we can pick up on it, but there's just a lot that just flies under the radar for a lot of people. But I mean, it's pretty mainstream. That's pretty, in my opinion, it's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Suicide Boys is another hip hop duo that I listen to, and they have a song where they sample Mario, sampled Mario and stuff. So, but yeah, you can find that stuff all over the place. But yeah, it's a matter of figuring it out or hearing it.
Yeah. Half the time when it does pop up, I'm just like listening, and then I'm like, is that the Mario coin sound? And it always throws me off, and it's just because it comes out of nowhere. It's not the place I expect to hear it. But then I'm like, no, This fits pretty good. This is pretty well fit into here.
Mm-hmm.
Well, everybody, that's going to be it then for a jump off point. Thank you, Jesse. Thank you, Josh. Mm-hmm. I've been your host, the Enlightened Insider Eddie V. And everybody, have a great week. Have a great weekend. And we'll see you next time on Jump Off Point. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.